Ethan Wilson came to the orphanage to choose a sister. All the girls crowded around, praying to be selected. I was the only one who hid in the closet and fell asleep, thinking I could escape the fate of becoming the Wilson family's adopted daughter and eventually Ethan's wife from my past life. I wanted to live freely and happily this time. But when I woke up, Ethan stood before the closet door. He smiled and asked, "Yara, will you come home with me?" Seeing his face, I thought I was still trapped in the nightmare until the director snapped, "Yara, why are you hiding here asleep?" Reality crashed over me. As I stood frozen, the director pulled me from the closet, straightened my collar, and pushed me toward the Wilsons. "You were sleeping, and Ethan insisted we let you rest. Everyone's been waiting." Ethan stood before his parents with that faint smile, so different from the cold man I remembered. "Hello, Yara," he greeted. Something about how he said my name felt unsettling. I frowned, avoiding his gaze. Why wait for me when they could have chosen anyone else? "Why wait for me?" I asked. The director bent down, beaming. "They're adopting you, Yara. You'll have a family now, parents and a brother." Her rare smile probably meant she was happy for me. Orphans consider adoption a blessing. But she didn't know I'd been reborn. I'd intentionally hidden because I remembered Ethan choosing me today. "Come home with us, Yara." Grace took my hand gently. Ethan always wanted a sister. The scene mirrored my past life. Memories flashed like a slideshow. I jerked my hand back, declaring to the director, "I don't want them to adopt me." Gasps filled the room. Ethan reacted strongest, demanding, "Why?" "Because I won't be your sister." Instead of anger, his voice softened with hidden tenderness. "Then don't be my sister. Just live with us at the Wilson estate. Will that work?" The director tugged my sleeve discreetly, but I refused again. "No." When the director asked if the Wilsons wanted another girl, Ethan suddenly shouted, "Mom, I want her." His finger pointed at me. "She looks most like Emily. Last life, he'd chosen me for resembling his late sister Emily. Back then, I'd felt chosen by destiny. They'd renamed me Yara Wilson, gave me a room in their mansion. Even when Grace criticized, "Orphans have provincial habits, you must learn proper decorum," I'd erased myself to become their perfect doll. I had to practice the piano for over 12 hours every day. Even though my teacher explicitly said I had no talent for it, Grace still accompanied me during practice sessions. But some things can't be forced. "I'm sorry, Mom. I still can't play well." I'd apologize each time. Grace would look at me with increasing tenderness, comforting me, "It's all right. As long as Yara keeps trying, you'll master it someday." It wasn't until later that I discovered piano had been the passion of Grace's deceased daughter. Her treatment of me was merely an attempt to find echoes of another person in my reflection. But I didn't care. A fish dying of thirst doesn't question the purity of water. Survival is enough. Water to fish. Love to me. Any would do. I practiced harder. I worked harder to please Grace. We gradually resembled a real mother and daughter. Then came Ethan's engagement party. When Ethan was drugged and I accidentally stumbled into his room, Michael collapsed in rage upon finding us. Grace slapped me across the face. "I never should have brought you into the Wilson family." Ethan watched in silence, his eyes holding emotions I couldn't decipher. But I imagined his regret mirrored mine, regret over choosing me as his sister. "I don't know what happened. I didn't drug him," I pleaded. But no one believed me. This disbelief haunted our future. With Ethan repeatedly betraying our marriage while sneering, "You drugged your own brother to get this marriage. Now you're getting exactly what you deserve." Ethan hated me. He took pleasure in publicly humiliating me during our marriage. Our social circle placed bets on how long our union would last. A year at most. He'll dump her after the baby's born. Yet we remained entangled for 19 years. Even my tombstone would eventually bear the inscription Ethan Wilson's wife. Why didn't you want to be adopted by the Wilsons? The orphanage director summoned me after Ethan and his parents left. After a long silence, I offered a flippant excuse: I didn't want to leave you and everyone here. She urged me to reconsider, but I refused to repeat past mistakes or be tied to Ethan again. Then nighttime flames shattered all my plans. Did you start the fire? I coldly confronted Ethan at the hospital. No. He rushed to explain. The fire department confirmed aged wiring caused it. His laugh held self-mockery. Yara, you think too poorly of me. We'd only met a handful of times this lifetime. Yet Ethan treated me with inexplicable familiarity. I just want to help. Agree to come home with me, and I'll cover all the director's medical bills. The director had been severely burned saving us during the fire. I scoffed. Exploiting others' desperation makes you a good person? Ethan didn't defend himself. You don't have to be my sister, Yara. You could simply be fostered by the Wilsons. His coaxing voice offered repeated compromises. But my curiosity only grew. Why are you so insistent on bringing me back to the Wilson family? Ethan replied. Because my mother has been missing my sister terribly lately. And you look exactly like her. I want you to come home to keep her company. I remained skeptical. His behavior toward me had been too unusual. Is that the only reason? He hesitated briefly before nodding. That's all. Though reluctant to get involved with Ethan, I couldn't forget the hospital bed where the orphanage director still lay. During the drive to the Wilson estate, Ethan kept trying to make conversation while I maintained stubborn silence. Life at the Wilson residence will offer you better opportunities than the orphanage ever could, he said softly, as if trying to atone. Yara, don't resent me. I'm only doing what's best for you. Those words, I'm only doing what's best for you, Ethan had said them in our previous life too. He'd hated me for decades, only softening when death already had me in its grip. During my final days when only my cat offered comfort, Ethan had suddenly appeared at the villa and ordered the 6-month-old kitten thrown out. Why? I'd choked out. He'd looked down his nose at me, repeating those same poisonous words. That's when I understood his good intentions were never about me. They were excuses to justify his control, twisted methods to destroy everything I cherished. The car pulled into the circular driveway where Grace stood waiting. Ethan had warned her about my arrival. She'd prepared a second-floor bedroom, still filled with her deceased daughter's possessions. Yara, this will be your room, Grace said warmly, clasping my hands. I stared at our joined fingers before gently withdrawing. I wasn't that desperate. Mother, starved girl from my past life anymore. Mrs. Wilson, this was your daughter's room, wasn't it? You've kept all her things perfectly preserved. I'd hate to accidentally damage anything precious. The guest room downstairs would be better. But, Grace began. Mother, Ethan interrupted. If Yara prefers the first floor, have the staff prepare it. I studied this unexpected ally. He didn't realize my true objection, that his own bedroom sat adjacent to this one. In our previous life, before his engagement, we'd coexisted peacefully. When Grace once asked what kind of boy I liked, I'd laughingly gestured at Ethan returning from his morning run, someone like Ethan. That careless teenage joke later became Exhibit A in his accusation that I'd drugged him. You claimed to love me since 16. He'd snarl while choking me against the wall. Schemed for years to force marriage. Yet now deny it? That night in the familiar mansion, the nightmares came. Doctors from my final days echoed, you shouldn't be alone. Call family. My whispered reply haunted even my dreams, I don't have any. As for friends, my best friend back then was Ivy Peter, Ethan Wilson's fiancée. She returned to the country during the 5th year of my marriage to Ethan. He personally went to pick her up at the airport and organized a welcome party for her. Someone intentionally sent me a video from the gathering where the two sat in a corner, kissing passionately. I watched those few seconds of footage all night long. That same evening, I made the decision to terminate my second pregnancy with Ethan and filed for divorce. When he demanded, "What's your reason?" I showed him the video. "Ethan, I know you only married me out of obligation. But now that Ivy's back and clearly forgiven you, let's end this and move on with our lives." I'd actually asked for divorce multiple times before, but he always refused. With Ivy's return, I thought he'd finally agree. Yet Ethan tore up the divorce papers I'd prepared and deleted the video from my phone. "Yara? Yara?" I jolted awake, my hand connecting with Ethan's face. The teenage version of Ethan stared at me with wounded eyes. "I heard you crying through the door," he mumbled before turning to leave. Pausing at the threshold, he added, "Get dressed for breakfast. We'll be late for school." Just like my previous life, the Wilson family had enrolled me in Ethan's school. As I followed him into the classroom, someone asked, "Ethan, who's that?" He introduced me as, "This is Yara Smith. She's staying with my family for now." The response jarred me. In my past life before the drugging incident, he'd always introduced me as my sister Yara Wilson, studying Ethan standing an arm's length away. I realized he seemed different from both the teenage boy I remembered and the vengeful man who later tormented me. My pulse quickened as a realization struck. "Ethan! Ethan!" We turned simultaneously toward the classroom door where Ivy stood. "Wait for me after school. We need to talk," she told him before noticing me. Her gaze turned assessing and cold. "So you're the girl living with the Wilsons?" This hostility felt foreign. In my past life, Ivy had immediately embraced me as Yara and brought me into her social circle after learning I was Ethan's sister. Now her demeanor mirrored our final confrontation when I'd confronted her. "Security footage shows only you and I entered Ethan's room that night. If I didn't drug him, it must have been you." Back then, I couldn't comprehend why she'd sabotage her own engagement to someone she loved. "She's Yara Smith," Ethan answered for me, his tone protective. Ivy glanced at me with a forced smile before turning away. I settled into my seat, acutely aware of her repeatedly looking back throughout class. Though unsettled, I focused on taking notes with renewed determination. My past life's academic failures haunted me. Grace had always taken perverse pleasure in my poor grades, cooing how I resembled Emily, who never cared for books either. What mother celebrates her daughter becoming a pretty fool? Her affection had always been conditional, my existence merely a living memorial to her lost daughter. This time would be different. No more being someone's porcelain doll replacement in youth or gilded canary in gilded cages during adulthood. Education was my lifeline, though the trigonometry equations swam incomprehensibly across the page. Frustrated, I stood abruptly. "Where to?" Ethan paused his conversation with classmates. "Bathroom," I snapped, pushing past. The girls' bathroom stood unusually empty between periods. My hand froze on the door handle as the scene unfolded. Ivy grinding a cigarette under her boot near three girls cornering a drenched Lena in the corner. "Just messing around," Ivy purred, blocking my view of the shivering sophomore. "You won't tattle to Ethan, right?" I eyed the soggy cigarette butts floating in murky water. "We're not close." Her shoulders relaxed. "But you're living with the Wilsons. Roof over my head doesn't mean family." The lie tasted bitter. She left with her pack, combat boots echoing down the tiled hall. Lena stood trembling by the sinks later, wringing her translucent uniform shirt. Without thinking, I shoved my blazer at her. "Wear this." She flinched. "I'm fine." "Your bra's showing through the wet fabric." Crimson flooded her ears as she clutched the offered jacket. My chest tightened, remembering last timeline's newspaper clipping, "Honor students' fatal plunge from science building," ruled as academic pressure. As Lena emerged properly covered, I finally exhaled. This fragile thread of normalcy might unravel any moment. But for now, one tragedy had been postponed. Her whispered thanks lingered like a prayer as she fled. Lena Miller, who had changed her clothes, thanked me. The words "you're welcome" were on the tip of my tongue, but I swallowed them back. After thinking for a moment, I asked Lena, "You're pretty good at academics, right?" I remembered Lena had been top of our grade before jumping off the building. She paused before nodding. "Decent." "Lena." I glanced at the jacket she was wearing. "I'll lend you this jacket if you tutor me." Without giving her time to refuse, I continued. "After the quiz, we're rearranging seats. Let's become desk mates then so you can help me study." It took Lena a long hesitation before she agreed. After school, Ethan stubbornly insisted I ride home with him in the car. But the moment I got in, Ivy called out to him, "Ethan, can we talk?" I wasn't interested in their drama and didn't want to eavesdrop. Yet the area was too quiet, and Ivy's voice was loud with agitation. Their conversation drifted over on the wind. Ivy demanded, "Are you breaking up with me because of Yara? We've been together so long." "Ethan, you dump me the moment Yara appears?" "There's no other explanation." Ethan sounded weary. "This has nothing to do with anyone else." "Ivy, I just realized I've only ever seen you as a sister." Suddenly I understood why Ivy had been shooting me those intense looks all day, even turning around constantly during class. During dinner, Grace suddenly announced, "Yara, I found you a piano teacher starting tomorrow." Ethan cut her off. "Mom, Yara doesn't like the piano. Please don't force your hobbies on her." Grace smiled awkwardly but dropped the subject. I looked at Ethan. My suspicion confirmed. I'd never told this version of Ethan about my piano aversion. Only my husband from the previous life had known that secret. Back then, after he'd thrown out my cat and my illness worsened, the Ethan who despised me had miraculously left work to care for me at our villa. On our 19th wedding anniversary, he'd gifted me a Steinway shipped from overseas. Even when I'd said, I never liked piano, I only learned because Mom wanted me to, he'd simply given me jewelry that night. He'd transformed into someone attentive, patient. "How do you know Yara dislikes piano?" Grace pressed, turning to me. "Yara, do you want lessons?" I pulled myself from the memory, smiling. "Mrs. Wilson, I need to focus on my studies. I really don't have time to learn piano." As I headed to my room after dinner, Ethan called out, "Yara, after tomorrow's quiz when we choose seats, where do you want to sit?" When I stayed silent, he added, "Fifth row by the window?" That had been my perpetual spot in our previous life. Ethan watched me eagerly, waiting for recognition. Meeting his gaze, I shrugged. Whatever. My indifference somehow delighted him. Until the next day. He watched, stunned, as I walked right past him to sit beside Lena. "Yara," Ethan called out publicly. His jaw tightened as he asked, "Did you make a mistake?" "Nope." Ethan stood awkwardly in place before finally sitting down after a long moment. "Weren't you supposed to pick your seat first? Why'd you choose this spot?" I couldn't help grumbling at Lena. She'd selected the worst possible seat, front row center. "My eyesight's terrible. I can't see the board from the back," she said, though I'd never seen her wear glasses. When I looked skeptical, Lena explained matter-of-factly, "Couldn't afford prescription lenses." "Oh." I pursed my lips. "Thought maybe you were saving this awful seat so no one would sit next to you." Lena glanced up from her test papers with brutal honesty. "You're overthinking it." Overthought or not. I dragged Lena to an optician near campus during lunch break and strong-armed her into getting glasses. "How are you supposed to tutor me if you can't see the board?" I argued, slapping down Ethan's credit card without remorse. He owed me this much anyway. The simple act of fitting those frames on Lena unexpectedly broke her. This girl hadn't shed a tear when Ivy's crew tormented her. Yet now she trembled with suppressed sobs. Yara, I'll pay you back someday. She kept hiccuping between tears. I finally calmed her down, only to get cornered by Ethan in the stairwell later. Why didn't you take the seat we agreed on? He demanded. Who said we had an agreement? I shot back. Did I ever promise you anything, Ethan? His jaw clenched. We stood locked in silent combat until he finally murmured. Yara, why is everything different now? Are you also? Also what? I smiled sharply. The unanswered question hung between us like poisoned honey. Word of our confrontation reached Ivy by third period. She materialized at my desk post-bell. Venom dripping from each syllable. Stay away from Ethan. Even Lena tried cautioning me later. Yara. Really? Ivy started harassing me just because Ethan asked about a calculus problem once. Her fingers worried the new glasses frame. She's dangerous. I'd gladly avoid Ethan. But the guy possessed cockroach-like persistence, materializing whenever I least expected it. Sighing, I hugged my anxious friend. Don't worry about it. The universe laughed at my reassurance. We need to talk. Ivy blocked my path in the hallway next morning. Her eyes burned with primal hatred, a marked shift from our previous life's casual cruelty. That flicker of recognition made me pause. Sure. I agreed, stepping closer. What about? She waited until chattering students flooded the adjacent stairwell before sneering. Nothing worth your time. The deliberate bait dangled between us, sharp as razor wire. If it weren't for being fostered by the Wilson family, you wouldn't even be qualified to speak to me. The words barely left her lips before she collapsed backward. Ethan happened to ascend the staircase just in time to witness her fall. Yara. Why did you push me? Ivy sobbed, accusation dripping from her trembling voice. Her single sentence instantly turned the surrounding classmates' judgmental gazes toward me. Ethan frowned but remained silent, his eyes briefly lifting to where I stood on the upper corridor before organizing some boys to escort Ivy to the hospital. As they helped her away, Ivy whimpered to Ethan. Ethan, my leg hurts so much. What if I can never dance again? He murmured reassurances until the group disappeared from view. Only when the crowd dispersed did Ethan approach me. Apologize to Ivy, he demanded, looking down at me with that familiar coldness. Why should I? She fell on her own. Ethan exhaled heavily. Dancing is Ivy's entire life. Are you suggesting she'd risk her future to frame you? Yara. I know you resent her. But those things, he caught himself abruptly. I laughed sharply. But what? Go on, Ethan. I just transferred here. Why would I possibly hate Ivy? Unless, I stepped closer, watching his jaw tighten. Unless you know we've both been reborn. You remember how Ivy tormented me in our past life. So you assume I'm taking revenge now by pushing her down the stairs. I expected some flicker of honesty. But Ethan's lips merely twitched before he muttered. I don't understand your nonsense. But you will apologize. This time my laughter held real amusement. Still the same coward. Ethan. Even with a second chance. You'd rather lie to yourself than face the truth. The color drained from his face. He turned away abruptly. I need to check on Ivy. I'm coming too, I declared, matching his hurried strides. If you insist, I pushed her. Let's hear her story again. Maybe she'll remember better this time. At the hospital, we found Ivy with her leg encased in plaster. The moment she saw Ethan, fresh tears spilled. The doctor says it's severe. Ethan! What if her voice broke theatrically until she noticed me. Yara! How could you do this? You knew dancing was everything to me. I waited until her performance peaked before asking calmly. Ivy, are you absolutely certain I pushed you? Who else could it have been? she shrilled, clutching her blanket. I've protected these legs since childhood. My parents will have you expelled for this. Ethan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, turning to me with finality. Yara, apologize. The monitor beeped in the sterile silence as I stared at my former husband, this time traveling hypocrite who'd rather protect his precious Ivy than acknowledge our shared past. My smile widened. This was going to be far more entertaining than our previous lifetime. I ignored him, keeping my gaze fixed on Ivy. You think you can frame me just because there aren't cameras in the stairwell? My voice remained steady. Ivy, I suggest you get someone to thoroughly check the area again. Maybe you missed some hidden surveillance. A flicker of tension crossed Ivy's face. I caught that subtle shift instantly. This version of Ivy hadn't been reborn. The reincarnated one would have known about the security cameras in the opposite academic building. The realization disappointed me. Turning to leave, I found Ethan moving to follow until Ivy's plaintive voice stopped us. Ethan, my leg hurts so much. Stay with me? He hesitated, those storm gray eyes darting between us. Yara, wait outside for me? Like hell I'd wait for you. I muttered, striding through the hospital's automatic doors. The late afternoon sun glared as I headed back toward campus. Yara. Lena's voice halted me at the quad's fountain. She sprinted up, chest heaving, thrusting a flash drive into my palm. What's this? I frowned. Security footage. She panted, adjusting her glasses. From the opposite building's third-floor camera. It shows everything that really happened in the stairwell. Her fingers trembled slightly. Ivy's father being on the school board. I thought they might delete it. So I made a copy during lunch period. Warmth flooded my chest. Linking arms with her, I rested my head on her shoulder. You're the best. Lena. A blush crept above her tortoiseshell frames despite her forced composure. We should get to class. Midterms are next week. Her stern tone contradicted the smile she tried suppressing. The surveillance proof became unnecessary anyway. That evening, we caught Ivy sneaking through the darkened corridors. Her neon pink cast glowing under emergency exit signs. Ethan stepped forward before I could speak. What are you doing here after hours? Her stammered excuses hung awkwardly until I intervened. She's obviously checking for cameras. I pointed across the courtyard. The one you want's over there. Though it's too late, I've already got copies. Locking eyes with her, I repeated the critical question, did I push you? Ivy's gaze darted to Ethan, finding no refuge in his stony expression. The cast, he observed coldly, seems mobile enough for nighttime adventures. Tears welled in her eyes as the fabricated story unraveled. I panicked. It was an accident. She finally confessed. Voice breaking. Ethan walked away without a backward glance. By morning, under my watchful eye, Ivy repeated her confession to our entire homeroom class. When Lena and I moved into the dorm's sophomore year, our reasons differed yet intertwined, her aunt relocating for work, me escaping Ethan's suffocating attentions. The Wilson family's ivy-covered mansion felt worlds away from our twin beds separated by a shared desk, where Lena's meticulous study schedule slowly replaced my tangled web of grudges and second chances. In this lifetime, my relationship with the Wilson couple wasn't particularly close. They simply asked a few questions before agreeing to let me move out. Only Ethan vehemently opposed it. He asked, "Why do you insist on living on campus?" I continued packing while brushing him off impatiently. It's more convenient and better for focusing on my studies. Ethan fell silent for a long moment behind me. Just as I thought he'd left, I heard him say quietly, "You're trying to get away from me, aren't you? Yara, I truly believed we could start over. But you won't forgive me. You still hate me." I turned to face him, deliberately taunting. "Why would I hate you? You're being strange. Ethan. First you claimed I hated Ivy. Now you're saying I hate you. He stared at me for a long moment before closing his eyes briefly. When they reopened, his smile looked painful. You do hate me, Yara. Can't we forget what happened in our past life? Why can't we begin anew? I sneered. Done pretending? He ignored my open hostility, continuing desperately, since fate gave us the second chance. Let's erase everything from before. Please. Ethan was rotten to the core, suppressing my rage. I glared at him. You weren't the one who suffered. You didn't lose everything. That's why it's easy for you to talk about forgetting. Why should I forget? Why should I give you another chance? Abusers always think a cheap sorry can erase their victim's pain. How delusional. He persisted. I'll replace everything you lost before. In our past life, you said you felt like the luckiest girl in the world before my engagement. If you let go, you can have that again. You could befriend Ivy like before. We're not siblings now, my parents won't oppose us. We'll marry after graduation. They'll cherish you as their daughter. We could. Enough. I cut him off coldly. No. I'll never befriend Ivy. Let alone marry you. When will you stop lying to yourself? I'm not delusional. Ethan's eyes burned with manic intensity. Nothing's impossible, Yara. The obsessive lunatic clearly resorted to underhanded methods. Soon Ivy moved into our dorm too, assigned to the same room as Lena and me. Her repeated attempts to befriend us met with stony silence. The night before finals, everything exploded. Lena and I were studying when Ivy burst in, screaming through tears, "Why do you hate me? I've apologized. I've tried everything. What more do you want? It's my birthday. But I'm stuck here being treated like garbage. I begged Mom to take me home. But Ethan forbade it. He's forcing me to befriend you. I hate this. I hate you both. Mom made me chase Ethan's approval since childhood, said I had to marry him someday. I worked so hard. But Yara ruined everything just by existing." She collapsed sobbing on the floor. Lena wordlessly pulled me out of the room. Later, she asked uncertainly, "Do you think I'm too harsh on Ivy?" I shook my head. She bullied you. However you treat her is justified. No one can demand that you forgive someone who has hurt you. In my eyes, Lena had shown remarkable grace. At the very least, she tossed a packet of tissues to the sobbing Ivy before leaving the dorm that day. Yet instead of improving, Ivy's behavior grew increasingly peculiar afterward. She began relentlessly inserting herself into my life and Lena's, even convincing our teacher to move her seat directly behind mine. Ivy meticulously crafted this illusion of us being inseparable friends for everyone around us. "I've decided," she announced brightly. "I'm going to study hard with you too. Maybe we'll even end up at the same university." This became her constant refrain whenever she pushed me to tutor her. "Come on, Yara. Help me figure this out," Ivy would plead, her wheedling tone transporting me back to our previous friendship in what felt like another lifetime. Back then, she'd used that same saccharine voice during our countless study sessions. Lena once whispered to me during lunch, "Do you think Ivy's genuinely changed?" "Maybe," I replied, watching Ivy approach our table with exaggerated cheerfulness. My fingers tightened around my juice box as I added quietly, "But people don't just wake up fundamentally different. No one becomes terrible overnight or miraculously turns saintly either." This strange détente persisted through graduation. True to his word, Ethan was making concerted efforts to atone for past wrongs, gradually restoring what I'd lost before. Through Ivy's relentless efforts, our relationship reached an uneasy truce. The Wilsons' treatment of me grew increasingly attentive, so much so that after finals, Grace and Michael insisted on hosting an elaborate 18th birthday gala at their estate. Ivy discovered these plans during one of her frequent visits. "I want to help organize Yara's party," she declared with performative enthusiasm. Ethan's lips curved in that familiar half-smile. "Of course. As Yara's closest friend, your involvement will make this celebration perfect. His gaze shifted to me, eyes glinting with unspoken meaning. Isn't it remarkable how close you two have become? Proves nothing's impossible, right? I merely smiled, letting the implication hang. On the night of the gala, Ethan presented me with a $300,000 Patek Philippe. I accepted without hesitation, with our foster arrangement ending at 18. I'd need every resource for independence. The ballroom glittered with uptown socialites and classmates Ivy had insisted on inviting. Lena and I, overwhelmed by the opulence, escaped to the moonlit garden. Any summer plans? I asked, tracing the watch's diamond bezel. Waitressing, Lena replied, sipping her virgin cocktail. Need to save up for dorm expenses. I was about to suggest we work together when a piercing shriek shattered the night. We found them in the blue guest suite, Ethan hastily buttoning his dress shirt, Ivy clutching a silk sheet to her chest. The rumpled bedding and love bites told the whole story. Michael's palm cracked across his son's face before the gathered crowd. Have you no decency? Ivy threw herself between them, tears streaking her smudged makeup. Uncle Michael, please don't blame Ethan. It was my fault. The grandfather clock chimed midnight as I observed the scene, its hollow tones echoing the emptiness of this gilded cage. Lena's hand found mine, our silent pact stronger than any spoken vow. Beyond the stained glass windows, the first hints of dawn tinted the sky, a new day breaking over the ruins of carefully constructed illusions. The Wilson household descended into chaos. Ethan spotted me standing at the back of the crowd and tried to approach, only to be intercepted by Ivy's parents. Ethan, you can't leave without giving us an explanation, they insisted. The gathering ended abruptly, with the Peters finally departing around 10 p.m. wearing satisfied smiles. Clearly some agreement had been reached between the families. While passing the study that night, I overheard Michael telling Grace, we'll have their engagement ceremony in 2 days. Start preparing the arrangements. Later, Ethan knocked on my bedroom door, but I pretended to be asleep. The next morning, as Lena and I prepared for our summer jobs, Ethan blocked our path. I was drugged yesterday, he claimed desperately. I swear I didn't plan this. Oh, I smirked. Drugged by others, or yourself? Pain flashed across his face. Why would I ever do that? How could that be impossible? My voice turned icy. Didn't you drug yourself in our previous life too? First ruined my reputation, then made me take the blame. Memories flooded back of Ethan's deathbed confession from our past existence. What choice did I have? Yara? He'd whispered hoarsely. I loved you, my own sister. I thought if we were caught together, they'd let us marry. Never imagined father would die of shame. His arms had tightened around me like manacles. You can't leave me. We belong in this hell together. The present day Ethan reached out with trembling hands. I'm sorry. I've truly changed. Please believe me this time. I recoiled from his touch, walking away as he called after me. I'll break off the engagement with Ivy. Wait for me. On moving day weeks later, Lena helped me pack while the Wilsons maintained polite indifference. Our departure should have been smooth, until Ethan rushed home unexpectedly. They're letting you leave? He demanded incredulously. They always said you were like a daughter. As he stormed inside to confront his parents, we made our escape. Outside the gated community, we encountered Ivy. Gone was her former friendliness, now she eyed me with open contempt. Did you actually believe I wanted to be friends? She sneered, leaning closer. Let me share a secret. Yara. I was the one who drugged Ethan at your birthday party. I stared at this vindictive creature, struck by how perfectly matched she was to Ethan. Some sick souls truly deserved each other. I'll marry him and join the Wilson family in the future. Yara. To be honest, I don't even like Ethan that much. But my parents are desperate for this alliance with their family. Ivy told me in a boastful tone about all the benefits of marrying Ethan. I remained indifferent. No one understood better than me how miserable life with someone like Ethan could be. After parting ways with Ivy, Lena suddenly said, "Yara, you were right. People don't turn evil overnight. And they don't miraculously become saints either." She sighed. Thank God we didn't fall for it. For years after graduating college, neither Lena nor I pursued graduate school. We started our own business. On my 18th birthday, Ethan had given me an expensive wristwatch. I sold it to fund our startup. With decent luck and some foresight from past experiences, our company thrived under our management. I encountered Ethan again at a bidding event. Over the years, I'd heard snippets about him and Ivy. They divorced shortly after marrying. Initially, Ivy resisted, but Ethan's relentless tactics wore her down until she capitulated. Post-bidding, Ethan caught up with me in the parking lot. Flustered and stammering, he managed only, "I'm sorry, Yara." I glanced at him. "If you're truly sorry, withdraw from this bid." He paused, then shockingly agreed, "All right." I didn't believe him. Ethan epitomized self-interest. His apologies were always empty words. When real stakes emerged, he'd choose profit over principles every time. Updating Lena via phone about the bidding situation, she worried, "With the Wilsons involved, do we stand a chance?" "Actually, this confirms my theory," I countered. "If established dynasties like theirs are scrambling against newcomers like us, it means the Wilsons are crumbling. Mark my words, this bid is ours." Her relief was audible. That's all I needed to hear. Lena's faith in me never wavered. The bid announcement proved me right. Thrilled, I turned to find a quiet spot to call Lena, only to discover Ethan lurking nearby. Sunlight streamed through windows where I stood, while he remained shadowed by the corridor wall. "Congratulations," he forced out, mouth twitching. My smile vanished. Of all days to encounter this walking bad omen, yet oblivious to my disgust. He pressed on, "When you asked me to withdraw last time, I did. Are you here for favors?" I snapped. It was a casual remark. "Mr. Wilson, surely my words don't sway your decisions?" Panic flashed across his face. "That's not, I just wanted to see you. Talk to you." His words tumbled out desperately. "Yara, whatever you want from me, I'll do it." I snorted. "You'd do anything?" Ethan nodded eagerly. "Yes. Anything you ask." "All right," I said softly. "Then promise you'll never show your face around me again. Deal, Ethan?" I turned to leave. After 2 steps, I glanced back to spite myself. Ethan was hunched over, trembling as he swallowed pills. Spotting my gaze, he straightened abruptly, hiding the medication bottle behind his back. His eyes lit up like he'd glimpsed sunlight through storm clouds. He needn't have bothered hiding it. Whether he was ill or what he'd taken meant nothing to me. I simply voiced my truth. "Ethan, what I really want is for you to drop dead. But since you'd refuse, just stay out of my sight. That way, I can pretend you're already gone." I walked away without waiting for a response. The lobby windows reflected his slumped silhouette, a melted chocolate ice cream cone pooling on marble. Months later, during a project meeting, Lena mentioned the Wilson family. Only then did I realize how long it had been since Ethan's name crossed my radar. He'd vanished like morning mist. My last memory of his existence traced back to a year prior. A business partner's spouse had gossiped over cocktails, depressions eating that Wilson heir alive. Whole families scrambling. Michael came out of retirement. Rumor is Grace even hired spiritual healers. They say he's become nocturnal. Collapses at the slightest stress. Saw him panic once, pure nightmare fuel. "Yara?" Lena tapped my cheek. "You zoning out again?" I shook my head, refocusing on blueprints. Ethan's fate meant nothing now. My world thrived, Lena mirrored my soul. Our minds syncing like twin stars. Every ambition from my past life now bloomed in vivid reality. Sometimes I marveled at fortune's favor, the second chance brimming with everything I'd craved. The universe, it seemed, had chosen me as its darling.